Yeah. Hi, welcome to West Brom Fan TV. We've got Connor as normal. We've also got a very special guest from Arsenal Fan TV, Robbie. Welcome, Robbie. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
Good. Connor?
No worries. Well, West Brom versus Arsenal in the Carabao Cup second round. It's been a pretty awful start to the season for Arsenal. Are you just a bit of a controversial question before we get started? Are you Arteta in or Arteta out?
That is a controversial question. To be honest with me, I personally thought that when he first got the job, I was really shocked. I thought that we go for a manager of more experience. You know, I just felt that it's like when you manage a huge, it's not one of them jobs where you can learn on the job. So I initially wanted somebody much more experienced. Once he come in, I backed him. He won the FA Cup, so you had to give him his dues for doing that. But you know, let's just say for me at the moment, the jury's out. You know, it's our worst start to a season. You know, we've lost both games. We haven't even scored a goal yet. I can never remember anything like this. And we finished 8th last season and the season before. And for a club like Arsenal, it's simply not good enough, you know. So I'm not saying he should be out yet, because I do think there were some circumstances around those first 2 games that we have to take into account. The fact that, you know, we're missing players through injury and COVID. We've not gone into those games. You know, even the new players that we bought weren't even eligible to play. So I think we've got to take that into account. I think any team that's missing, you know, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Thomas Partey, Chelsea, and another 9 in, you know, I think these things do have to be taken into account as well. But even with that, the performances haven't been good enough. So the jury's out. The jury's out for him right now. So I'm still in, because I want him to succeed, and I don't think you should sack a manager after 2 games. But I think he really does need to get a win against West Brom. He really has to.
Freddie, you.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough one with Arsenal, really. I mean, Arsenal are a huge club. There's no denying that. Their Premier League pedigree, European pedigree. There's not many clubs that can match it. However, if you took the Arsenal squad and gave it to a side like Everton, you'd probably say it was where it belonged. It's sort of a bang average side, but the thing is, this isn't Everton side. This is Arsenal, and Arsenal should be pushing higher and higher up the table. They should have aspirations. I think Arsenal, with the way they've started the season and the way they ended last season, I don't even think 8th place is good enough for Arsenal, personally. But, I mean, with the way things are going, it looks like it can only get worse. And, I mean, if you look at Arsenal as well, with the sort of calibre of play, because Aubameyang, for example, on his day, is one of the best in the league. But he underperformed last season, which, again, you can put that down to various circumstances. I think he had malaria at one point as well. But there's so many different things that you've got to take into account of Arsenal at the minute. But the simple fact of the matter is they're not good enough at the minute. So regardless of being...
I hear people say that. I'm saying I hear a lot of people say they're not good enough, right? And no, we're not as good as Chelsea. We're not as good as, we're not as good as, say, I don't know, Man City and Manchester United. They've got better squads than us. But we're certainly just as good as the rest. And
I agree.
I look at some of the players we've got. You just said there, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Thomas Partey. These are top players. I mean, yes, he's been a bit unfortunate that, like, somebody like, Pepe, Saka, Smith Rowe. These are very, very good players. So we're we are underperforming at the moment, and that's why the jury's out on the manager. You know what I mean? I think with regardless of the fact, I wouldn't say it's a bang average team. We're playing like a bang average team. But I don't think it's a bang average. I don't think the players are bang average. I just think that at the moment, the performances are worse than bang average.
I agree. I think
they're not even bang average. They're worse than that.
Arsenal have players that are good enough to play in the Champions League, but they're not performing at the ability. Yeah. They're not performing at the ability they should. I completely agree with that. I think Arsenal's best squad is capable of top 5, I'd say. But the thing is, not getting to it.
Yeah, last year, a lot of times, we capable of beating. I mean, we did the double over Chelsea last year. So, this is, we never lost to Man United last year. We beat them and we drew with them. You know what I mean? So we're more than capable on the day of beating almost anybody. But the problem is it's just been not consistent and we're just underperforming week in, week out. And something's got to change. And you can't change 11 players. If things don't change soon, the managers game against West Brom, I think a couple of weeks ago, everybody was sort of looking on it and saying, well, that's the sort of game, rest loads and loads of players, see how it goes. You know what I mean? I don't think people were as bothered about it. But I feel now that it's a very important game for Arsenal because, we see how well West Brom have been performing and Mikel Arteta needs a result. He needs to win that game. I think if he doesn't win that game and then our next game is Manchester City away, he could be under some serious pressure for his job. 4 defeats at the start of a season is absolutely unheard of as an Arsenal manager or fan. So this is a big game for him because I think if he beats West Brom, that's expected, and that's no disrespect to you guys because you're playing really, really well. And I know it's going to be a really tough game, but it's not expected that we're going to beat Man City. So I think if that happened and, we were still in the Carabao Cup, beaten West Brom, lost, it wasn't a terrible loss, then he's going to get a bit more time. But if he loses to West Brom, then loses badly to City, his job is on the line. So there's a big game for him on Wednesday.
Yeah, and obviously, looking in obviously you probably haven't watched much of West Brom. But what do you think of the way we've started? Have you seen any of West Brom, and what players would you say you need to look out for?
Well, it's not one player in particular. I've just seen I watched. I'm really, really impressed. And I just think it's not so much when I've watched West Brom. And even last season, I watched quite a few West Brom games because, of course, Ainsley Maitland-Niles was on loan there. So I was always looking in to see how West Brom were getting on in that. And I thought even last year, some of the, towards the end of the season, you played some decent stuff. You just weren't really putting the ball in the back of the net. I think, with what I've seen this season of West Brom, you guys got the high press going on. You're very energetic. And your performances have been very, very impressive. So this is a banana skin definitely for Arsenal because we haven't really dealt with high pressing teams recently. Well, it's a weird thing with Arsenal. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. That's the problem with us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we'll draw a team on, beat that press and go on and do wonders. Then on another day, we keep getting caught. That's the problem. We're inconsistent. So I know this, from what I've seen of West Brom, and as I said, I saw the game against Sheffield United. You know what I mean? Tough game. It's a very, very tough game to get. We were hoping for maybe just a little easy home tie in the Carabao Cup, and to get in West Brom, that's one of the most difficult games we could have got.
Yeah.
I think one thing that bears in mind with me as well, in particular, is that Arsenal took us to the cleaners twice last season, and Arsenal were the ones that mathematically relegated us as well. So I don't know if there's any Albion players, and I don't know if this is going to be or not the case. This is just a sort of a thought on my mind. I don't know if there's many Albion players that are going to want to look at that and try and almost make up for that almost, because Arsenal did batter us twice last year. And I think that's still going to be a sticky wicket in a few of our players' minds. And I think the Arsenal home game when you won 4-0, I mean, that's a good win for Arsenal, but that's probably West Brom, that or Leeds is probably West Brom's worst performance that season. So I think there's some players that are going to be looking for a bit of redemption in that case. One thing that I did wonder about, in your opinion, though, Robbie, was if potentially, let's say, Arsenal go and win this game, do you think that will give the players a boost, or do you still think there's a lot of work to be done?
There's a hell of a lot of work to be done, but winning breeds confidence. So, even though it'd be, it wouldn't have been a Premier League team, it doesn't matter. I mean, if we go away and get a win against a team that's right at the top of the Championship, that's a morale booster. I mean, if we haven't scored a goal yet, we haven't scored one goal yet. So, even getting a couple of goals and getting on the score sheet and maybe getting a player like Aubameyang, or I heard today that Lacazette's back. Maybe he might figure a little bit in that game, because that's going to be the other interesting thing is who plays. Because as I said, the squad's been ravaged with a mixture of injuries and COVID. Lacazette hasn't played for us yet because he's been out with COVID, but he's back in training. So I'd expect probably him to maybe play like a 20, 30 minutes in the game, hopefully. Aubameyang only just came back for that game against Chelsea, came on in the second half. Maybe he'll get some minutes in the game. So, because we've got a very important game against Manchester City at the weekend. It's going to be really injuries, as I said. And, over the years, the Carabao Cup is a competition where we've blooded a lot of youngsters. But now all of them youngsters are already in the team anyway. So it's going to be really interesting to see the team.
There's one thing, Connor will agree with me, and there's one name in particular that is really concerning from Arsenal's team, and there's a particular reason for this. It's Emile Smith-Rowe. And Connor will know exactly why I've said this name, but Smith-Rowe just always scores against West Brom. He always does it, and that's the one I'm concerned about more than anything. He did it twice for Arsenal.
It'd be interesting to see if he plays. I'll be honest with you, because I get a feeling that maybe you might see Martin Odegaard play, because of course Odegaard wasn't able to play on Sunday because some visa issues in his signing. So I think he's available for the game, and also Aaron Ramsdale. I'd expect him to. Again, he's only just come in. It would be a chance for him to start. So I think you'll see. I think I get the feeling that Odegaard will start that game, and as I said, maybe a couple of the players that have been suffering from COVID might make an appearance in the game as well. But as I said, I'm really going to be interested to see what sort of team he puts out. My suggestion to Mikel Arteta is to put a strong team out, because this is not going to be an easy game.
Yeah, and one last question before we get on to the score predictions from yourself. What have you made of Arsenal's window so far? And there was obviously, this is a bit of a controversial question as well. Would you have preferred to have signed Sam Johnston, or are you happy with Ramsdale? Because obviously Johnston was available for 12 million. You know, goalkeeper, and John, in my opinion, is probably the better goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think on the goalkeeping thing, we didn't spend 30 million. It was around about 24 million. So I think when I first saw, I mean, at first they were talking about 40 million and then 35 million. I go, that's insane. All right. But once, it got reasonable and, we've got him now for 24 million. I think it's a good buy. He's a very young keeper, Ramsdale. I think that's the advantage of maybe buying him to say Sam John. 28, 20.
Yeah.
Ramsdale's like 22. So, for the long term, I feel it's a better buy. But I do think Sam Johnston's a very good goalkeeper. So I think there's not a lot in it, but I think the reason why Arsenal have gone for Ramsdale is a lot younger, and you protect the value with a younger player.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I think they've gone for him. With our transfer window, I think the signings that we made have been very sensible signings. It's been sort of needed. We needed a goalkeeper. We needed a backup left back. We needed a creative midfielder. We brought that in Odegaard. The Ben White one was a bit strange for me because at the time I didn't really think we needed a centre back. I thought Saliba would come back in that position. But I understand it. He progresses the ball out from the back well. But again, he'll be missing for the game because he's got COVID. So, yeah, the signings, I've been happy with the signings, but I would love to see a bit more. I want to see Arsenal bringing one before the end of the transfer window. But it's looking like maybe one more name might come in. But we've been busy. We've spent a lot of money in the transfer window. So, you know, there's no excuses at the moment for Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 2-1 West Brom win. Freddie, I'll ask you first. What is your score prediction for the game?
I believe it'll be 1-0 West Brom. I think that we're going to try and test them for the 90 minutes. And I'll also be very happy with the 1-0. I think that's what the score's going to be. As long as we give a good account of ourselves, I think that's the main important thing. But I do feel that we can get a 1-0 win this game.
Robbie, what's your prediction for the game?
Very, very hard to predict for me because, not knowing what the team's going to be. But I do think Arsenal, we have to win this. This is a must-win game. So I think that we're going to go into this game treating this very seriously. I expect to see a strong team from Arsenal. Maybe had we have had a decent result at the weekend, you would have seen a much changed, much weaker team. But I feel the fact that the team's not been performing, you might see Arsenal starting with an Aubameyang in there. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Arsenal, but I think it's going to be a very tough game.
All right, guys, that's the end of the video now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us on this stream, Robbie. We really appreciate you coming on.
No worries. Good luck.
Hopefully Arsenal pick up a bit for you because it is a shame to see what's happening at the club at the minute. But cheers for coming on. And obviously, if you want to subscribe to Robbie, which you probably already are, he's the don of the YouTube channels in terms of football. But if you want to subscribe to him, then go over to Arsenal Fan TV and subscribe to him there. Cheers for coming on, Robbie. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.
A good one, everyone.